Movie review sesh. What's up, boys and girls? Today, we are going to be talking about the verified hot 94% on Rotten Tomatoes Marvel Studios' The Thunderbolts. Now, people are saying that this is the best Marvel movie since Endgame. Is that true? And does it live up to that? Well, it was pretty good. I do think that people forget that Guardians of the Galaxy 3 exists, which is definitely the best thing that Marvel has put out since Endgame that didn't rely on nostalgia. You know, people will say like, oh, is it as good as No Way Home? Is it as good as Deadpool and Wolverine? Those movies are kind of like in their own little space for me because those are very much relying on Marvel getting people into the theater based on nostalgia and bringing back Tobey Maguire, Hugh Jackman. In terms of the most original thing that Marvel has put out since Endgame, I think this is the best of that, but I don't think it's as good as Guardians 3, but it was still pretty good. And I was very surprised because ever since they announced this movie, I don't know how many Comic-Cons ago, but I was like, dude, you have the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and you're making Thunderbolts. And I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. It was not without its problems, but I do think that it forwards the story of the overall MCU the most since Endgame. Like I've said before, they've just been dicking around since Endgame, trying to recreate moments like Cap lifting Mjolnir, and you got to earn that stuff.
Avengers!
And I will say, this movie did make me interested in seeing where they are going to go next with Fantastic Four and Doomsday. The general story of this movie is basically after finding themselves in an ensnared death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes embark on a dangerous mission that will force them to confront the darkest corners of their past. I'd say that's probably the best way to give you a basic synopsis without any spoilers. I don't even know if people care about spoilers for this movie, but when I saw it twice. The first time I saw it, I was like, damn, that was actually like had no right to be as cool and creative as it was, given that this is like a F-list team from the comics. You know, I'll get my issues out of the way first because, like I said, this movie was not without its problems, but it was very, very solid. It does have very funny moments. Both audiences I saw it with laughed quite a bit, but if you're not a fan of the Red Guardian humor, then there's a lot of that. And for a darker tone that they were going for, I do think that there was a little too much humor, specifically with Red Guardian. He's very much the comedic relief character. And I like David Harbour as that character. I do think he is quite funny. But if that humor is not your jam, then you're probably going to get a little annoyed. Like, less jokes and like keep the more precision ones in there. Other critique, really the only one I have, is that not every character in this ensemble is really given a lot of development. Ghost, it literally got nothing, which I don't even really care about. You know, I would appreciate if I was able to care about all the characters, but I didn't really mind it that much because characters were developed and there was, and the way that they explore the characters and their development and how they confront their trauma is very creative. So that stuff kind of gets a pass for me. But to get into the first thing that I liked, I thought this was a very solid action movie. People were calling Captain America 4 a solid action movie, and I did not get that at all. I thought the action was super bland in that movie. But in this, the camera sits back. You can see what the fuck is happening. The one thing I hate in Marvel movies they do a lot is there's a lot of shaky cam. The only time there is shaky cam in this movie is when the characters are confused about what is going on. It's not like shaky cam action, which means that the direction of the camera is servicing the story, which this movie does really well. Yeah, so the opening, I don't know if y'all caught the little behind the scenes thing, but Florence Pugh did her own stunt jumping off of the world's second tallest building. Very TTC style. Those of you who don't know that acronym, that stands for Tiny Tom Cruise style. And then it's followed up by she's invading a lab, and she's on a job for Valentina, Elaine from Seinfeld. There's a really cool and creative bird's eye view shot of the action where the focal point of what you're looking at, you're not even watching the action itself, like the physical people, you're watching their shadows, and it's from a bird's eye view shot. That was super creative, and when that happened, I was like, okay, I think I'm settling in for some creativity. And the main theme of the movie is overcoming or confronting your trauma, which is symbolized perfectly through the Sentry/Void/Bob character. And I found it really refreshing that the villain of the story was a representation of the themes and internal conflicts that the characters face in the movie. That was so refreshing. But just to give an example of how Bob kind of this Void character represents, the themes of the story and the internal conflicts all the characters are facing. So before Bob kind of becomes aware of his powers, he and Yelena are having a little heart-to-heart about how to deal with your trauma, and there's a joke about how she's just like, oh, you just got to stuff it down until it's nothing but a dark void. And when Bob touches people, he takes them back in their heads to the trauma that they're suppressing. And so when he does this to U.S. Agent, when he snaps out of it, he almost falls into this like mile-long black void that the characters just crawled out of. Obviously, that mile-long void is a representation of the void that Yelena just talked about. And so this is not like groundbreaking shit, okay? But it just shows me that the people making this movie actually gave a shit, They took the time to think about those things. They took the time to write those things into the story. They took the time to visually represent it well. It is a good movie on its own, but more than anything, it pushes forward the story of where all this is going. It felt like a return to old Marvel. I just think people are hungry for a good superhero movie, It was nice to go and have a collective experience with an audience in the way that you used to with Marvel movies. And this post-credit scene actually made me excited for where this is going. They did the chair watch, and you see all of the Thunderbolt actors except for one, Taskmaster, who they take care of pretty early on in this movie. But with the chair watch, they're bringing back a lot of the old X-Men, the new Fantastic Four team, and the Thunderbolts mostly. And then a couple, Tom Hiddleston, Chris Hemsworth, Anthony Mackie, Paul Rudd, a couple of the OGs. Overall, I think Marvel is just trying to literally speed race. They are sprinting to the finish line to get Secret Wars out of the way, so they can start the new mutant saga or whatever the next saga that's going to be more centered around the Fantastic Four and X-Men is going to be. I don't have any expectations for Doomsday. I've kind of learned with these movies that you really should not get involved in the hype of them, because you're ultimately just going to let yourself down when you just go in and you tamper your expectations and you don't get all involved in the trailers. That's why I liked this so much, was because I genuinely was not ever expecting this movie to be good or one of the strongest movies post Endgame. That is crazy to me that the Thunderbolts movie, and you know what? I think I thought about this. It seems like when Marvel does something that's a little more left field team-wise, Guardians of the Galaxy, it works. And they do that stuff really well. This also felt like a movie that just had an idea and they stuck with it all the way through. They didn't reshoot it 8 times like Captain America 4. Well, I don't think financially it's doing as well as Captain America 4. And I think it's just for the simple fact that people know the name Captain America. They know that IP, they know that brand. Thunderbolt's a little bit harder of a sell, but I hope this movie continues to do well at the box office and keeps getting good word of mouth. Is it one of the best Marvel movies ever? I don't think so. I think it's arguably one of the best grounded Marvel movies, like grounded Earth-based story, sure. And yeah, the other thing too is the movie flies by pretty fast. It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes or something like that, and I think it flies by pretty fast. Like the moment things were kind of starting to characters are at their low points, I was like, oh, this is beginning of third act stuff. We're about to wrap up relatively soon. And yeah, I mean, it was just nice to see a Marvel movie that had, themes. I can't tell you one theme of Captain America 4. I can't tell you anything thematically that movie was trying to do. Nothing. So it was nice to have a Marvel movie that had themes, that visually represented those themes, that didn't spell it out for you, and was also very well shot and had some very, very solid action. The action was also sparse, which I enjoyed. I think that people, like, I hate when studios and big action movies, like, they think that audiences are so dumb that they just want to see mindless action. I personally enjoy the parts where people are just talking and emoting and acting. Like, Florence Pugh is fantastic in this movie. She gives a very heartfelt performance. Like, the performances are all great. Some characters aren't as developed as others. Oh, I didn't even mention Bucky. Okay, that was one that bothered me. Bucky is like the most underdeveloped character in the entire MCU, and he's been here since 2011. And there's so much they could do with him, and they just don't. The Falcon and Winter Soldier show, that might have just been as well called the Falcon show, because Bucky had zero development in that show. He has zero development in this movie. I can understand not wanting to get repetitive about Bob touching people and them going back to their trauma, but I would have liked to see that with Bucky, because he's also supposed to be kind of the leader of the Thunderbolts, and then now, obviously, I think supposed to be kind of the leader of the new Avengers. But yeah, Bucky underdeveloped. I like Bucky. I like Sebastian Stan, but they keep wasting him. They need to beef him up a little bit, beef up his character a little bit. Oh, and then of course, what's kind of everybody's talking about is the fact that the way the Void takes people, I guess you would say, is that just kind of like splatter of black, like doom, with the nice little creepy sound effect. It was dark and I liked it. Like a child, well, you think at first a child dies after Red Guardian. You are safe, my child, and then boom. And that was cool. Everyone's talking about how the director was inspired to do that based on like the Hiroshima bombings, and visually it left a big impact on the audience. Everyone, when it happened, was like, ooh, very good Marvel movie, very visually stimulating character work, visual representation of themes, and I very much liked it. Not the most groundbreaking thing I've ever seen, but a kind of return to form for Marvel. So the Thunderbolts is going to get a very, very solid 7.5 out of 10. Goodbye.